everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. Now, I'm pretty excited because we have some more news for you today. Now, last Wednesday, Wheel of Time and Prime dropped another teaser trailer. Now, these are prop videos where they show a prop, they show how it's designed, and they're about 30 seconds long. A little bit of music in the background. Really, really neat, really well put together. We get to see the prop, then we get to see it on a piece of set. Now, what they did this time was Tom's guitar. Now, Tom Marilyn is the Gleeman that's pretty prominent in the series through almost all of the books, but we first meet him at the very first of the Eye of the World. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how they're going to change some things with his character during the rest of the video, but the big change we're talking about really is the fact that he has a guitar rather than a harp or a lyre, and I'll get into that in a bit. But they showed his guitar. This is the instrument that the showrunner and the rest of the production team decided that Tom would have, rather than his harp from the books. And I think it plays well, but again, we'll get into that in a bit. So they showed that. We're going to go through the video here, and I'm going to talk about it a bit as we do. I'll give my thoughts and feelings in the video, and then afterwards we're going to jump right into Rafe's Q&A, and we're going to geek out on all of his answers because he does really drop a few quite big bombs if you read into them just a little bit during his Q&A. Alright, before we get into the rest of the video though, spoiler warning, in this video I will be talking about Tom Marilyn. I will also be talking about the events that happen around him in the Eye of the World. So if you haven't read the first book of the Wheel of Time, the Eye of the World, be forewarned, I may spoil some things for you. Alright, without further ado, let's get to that teaser trailer. Alright, so we're opening up here with the script, and I'm going to stop right here because a lot of people have spent a lot of time trying to figure out what this script says, but we have one Twitter user, Stephen T. Rowe, and I'm going to link his Twitter account down below in the description box. Thank you so much, Stephen. He did probably the best job I've seen. I mean, I spent a lot of hours in Photoshop trying to figure this out, and I know a lot of other people did too, but he seemed to have gotten the most easy to read version of this, I guess, is the best way to put it. Now, what he thinks is the top part says Rand, and then we have a block, and then it says Maid, and we have a block. Now, Rand says, has someone with silver lines through blank their hair, or a blank blank, or blank, or a big man, a blacksmith. The Maid says the only silver-haired one is simply the Gleeman. Best quiet down, he's supposed to do one more song. Now, this is pretty cool because if that is what it's actually saying, what Rand is probably saying there is he's asking the Maid if he's seen any of his friends. So he's talking about Moraine and Lan and Egwene and Nynaeve and Perrin. So this is most likely after the events of Shadar Logoth when the party splits. And that is if, of course, they're including Shadar Logoth and if they split in that way. But either way, it's after the party splits, and with Nynaeve is with Moraine and Lan, and when Perrin and Egwene are by themselves and they're going off with the Tinkers and the Wolves, and Mat and Rand are on the road to Caemlyn. Now, so it appears at this point that Mat and Rand are on their own because he's looking for his friends, and it appears that they're in an inn, and that comes more obvious later on when we see the rest of the little teaser that Wheel of Time and Prime put out here, because it actually shows the set, which is really neat. Now, underneath it says, she nods her head to Tom Marilyn, 50s, who's finishing a beer as he heads back up to the stage carrying his guitar. Tom is wearing the patchwork of color on the inside of his cloak, identifying him as a Gleeman. Now, there's a couple of different things we're going to unpack here. The first thing is Tom Marilyn is in all caps. Now, Lauren from Unraveling the Pattern had pointed out that when a character is displayed in a script as all caps, it's the first time we're seeing them. So this is the first instance that we're seeing Tom. It's in an inn. It's after the party splits up, and it's when Rand and Mat are by themselves. Now, he's carrying a guitar. That is a big shift from the books. In the books, he carries a harp or a lyre, and that's what he plays. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about that as we see the guitar here in a second, but I think it's a smart change. It's a very conscious change. We're going to get into that during Rafe's Q&A. He talks about that just a bit, that the production team made because, I mean, let's face it, guitar is a little bit more accessible to the masses than a lyre or a harp would be, and I think it looks and plays better on screen, and Alexander William, the person who plays Tom, can play guitar. He can't play a harp. So it probably was just a very smart decision on their part to do that. Now, underneath all this, we have another blurred out word. It's very obviously reads end. So this is the end of a script. So this is either the end of episode 2 or episode 3. And I'm going to tell you why. Tom Marilyn, the actor that plays him, Alexander William, was not available for block 1, episodes 1 and 2. He was, however, available for block 2, which is episodes 3 and 4, and that's when he first appears in the show. So that means he does not leave the Two Rivers, does not meet the boys beforehand, he does not travel with them. All of that stuff doesn't happen, and they have to meet him later. So it appears like they're meeting him for the very first time on the road after they split up. And my guess is wherever they're heading to, they talk to the Gleeman a bit because he seems, old, wise, a little bit weathered, and they probably strike up a conversation with him, and because they're young and inexperienced, probably mention the Aes Sedai, probably mention everything that's going on, and blurt everything out because Rand and Matt are very inexperienced at the first of the show, or the book rather, and they tend to talk to everybody. A little bit like me, they're very friendly and they just let everything out. They don't hold anything back. So this is probably where he decides he's going to follow them. He's going to go with them wherever they're going because of his son, or because of his nephew rather, Owen, and the events that happen there. Now I won't spoil that for you guys or talk too much about it, but we do know we're seeing him later on. And the reason I'm saying at the end of episode 2, even though he wasn't available for block 2, is he could very easily just did one small shot at the beginning of episode 3, and they tied it into the end of episode 2 when he wasn't available, to have him show up, and then he could be there for a full 2 episodes before we leave him. So there's that. That's my take on that. All right, let's keep going on with the teaser that Wheel of Time and Prime released here, and I'm going to stop a little bit here and we'll talk about it a bit. Now we're going to see the blueprints of the guitar and a little bit how it's made, then I'll go through the computer graphics of how they put it together, and then we'll see an actual shot of the instrument itself. So here's computer graphics, and then we see the actual shot of the instrument. I'm going to stop it right here. It's beautiful, but it's not ornate. It's not gilded. It's not a fancy court bard's instrument. And you got to remember, at this point in time, Tom is a gleeman. He's traveling the world. He's no longer a court bard. So he's going to have simple, well-used, good instruments. And this looks, I mean, as someone who plays the guitar, and my family's very musical, it looks really well used, and it does look well put together. So when they designed this guitar, they did a really good job doing that. Now, we're going to keep going on here, and we're going to see a little bit of the set. Now, the set itself is an inn. Now, when Wheel of Time on Prime actually put this out, they said in the tweet that this was part of the set. So this is a real set. This isn't CGI. This isn't something they've mocked up for this video. This is the inn that Tom first appears in, and that's really, really neat. Now, we hear here in the video, Donation for the Gleeman. That's Alexander Williams' voice, the person who plays Tom, which is kind of neat. And you're hearing my voice over here, but there was kind of a dark, mysterious music playing in the background. Again, it can't be played on YouTube because of copyright issues, but that's okay because I wanted to talk about the videos we went through it anyway, so that's good. Now, I'm going to pan out here just a little bit so you can see the rest of the inn here, and I'm going to stop right there. So we see light coming from what appears to be a door to the left. We see candles set up. We see like the benches are weathered. The floor appears to be stone. The walls in the background are stone. This is an absolutely beautiful set. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. I'm blown away by the care and the craftsmanship they made in making these sets. This thing is going to look really nice. 100%. It'll be at least as pretty as Game of Thrones, if not prettier on the screen, which I'm really happy with. All right, so that was pretty neat. I enjoyed that thoroughly, and I really do like these prop reveals. One of the things I will say to the community and the people watching this is that if you like stuff like this, tell Wheel of Time on Prime. Tag them on Twitter. Let them know that you like it. The link to their Twitter account is down below in the description box. Go look at it there. If you don't have a Twitter account, go make one. Follow me. Follow Wheel of Time on Prime. There's a bunch of other people on Twitter at time. Let them know, though, because unless we engage with them and let them know that this is awesome and we like it, they may not do this anymore. I mean, they are interacting almost solely with the fandom on Twitter. So if you're a fan of the Wheel of Time series, go to Twitter. I mean, not everyone has it, but make an account just for Twitter time. All right. I know some people are not entirely happy with the changes, and they've been very vocal about that, but like I said in every other video I've made for the last year, it's an adaptation. It's another turning the wheel. Things will change. It's not going to be the same as the books. It will change. If you don't like that, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to watch the show. But for people like me who are... I'm a massive fan of the series. I mean, I've read it 50 times now. I've lived this series for years and years and years. I have all kinds of paraphernalia around the house. I drive my wife nuts with it. I'm excited for the show because I want to see these characters brought to life in a new and fresh way, and I'm excited for that. So with that aside, let's get through all of Rafe's questions and answers. We'll talk about what he said on Twitter. Now, the first question was, what's the most significant Season 1 character you invented for the show? Now, we know they're kind of inventing characters because we have some new names, but are they brand new characters or are they amalgams? Because, you know, let's face it, 2,782 name characters, they're gonna combine some characters because you can't hire that many actors and actresses. So Rafe's answer. So it says, answered by RJ, this is Rafe Judkins. There's no one fully invented, which is really good to hear because they're not just making up characters for the sake of making up characters. There's already plenty of them in Robert Jordan's works. Anyone new is either a character pulled from somewhere in the series and changed, or a composite of groups or types of characters personified in one individual, other than Steve, obviously. So if you don't know who Steve is, it's one of those characters that Renanian Intelligence leaked. Brand new name, Steve. And then Wheel of Time and Prime actually confirmed that, yeah, it was a brand new character named Steve, which is really funny because Steve doesn't sound too much like a Wheel of Time name. But that's the first question by Rafe Judkins. Second one, how difficult was it to change or leave out characters from the books for the screen adaptation? Now, this is a good question. Sometimes very difficult, obviously. People who drive the story or shed light on our characters' backstories or the world of the show always will be more likely to make an appearance. But some people are there in glimpses or subtle nods just for enjoyment. Some extras were named as characters and given things and looks from the books, so keep your eyes peeled. So Rafe's basically saying that not everyone's going to show up. They can't. It's impossible. Robert Jordan's world, the world he created, is so big and so vast. They're not going to be able to display everything. But for fans of the series, they're going to have Easter eggs. So when the show comes out, there's going to be little nods to characters that maybe had a speaking line or two or were shown in the books or shown up in the books. And we're going to get to see that, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to that. And I mean, when the show comes out, watch for my videos. I'll be doing a review. I'll be probably doing a watch video. You can see my reaction as a watch. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick apart this show frame by frame and show you all the Easter eggs, all the things the fans of the books may have missed as you go through if you're just watching it. So this question was from Sarah Nakamura. For those of you who don't know who Sarah is, she's the book consultant for the show. So she's there in the writer's room, and she makes sure the writers actually stay on track and don't change things that could vastly affect the story later on. So how many times to give you blank stares when discussing possible changes? So there we go. Rafe said, there were moments when a thrilled room of writers would go, we've cracked it. It's amazing. But can insert book canon person place thing be insert non-canon idea instead? And Sarah's resounding, withering stare would tell us to go back to the drawing board. R.I.P. Perrin talking to a bear. So basically that shows that Sarah's doing her job. Thanks, Sarah. What she's doing is when you adapt a TV show from another work, so let's say a book or a play or whatever, some things don't work on screen or some things have to be changed for money or time constraints or actor and actress constraints, all kinds of different reasons things have to be changed. In this instance, they're talking about Perrin talking to a bear. They're probably like, well, talking to wolves would be hard. Maybe you can talk to all animals, or maybe you can just talk to a bear instead. And this kind of sounds like the writer sitting around just spitballing, and then I can see Sarah doing one of these. I mean, 100% see her doing that. So I'm really good to hear this. For those of you who don't follow Sarah Nakamura on Twitter, she's part of Twitter Time. You can go follow her there as well. She's a huge fan of the series, massive, like probably the biggest fan I know, and she is certainly a big asset to the show. All right, next question was, in the books, we always enter the story on the wind. Will that be a convention? We see it a lot, which is really neat. Every single book starts off with the wind, and the wind goes through a mountain pass or goes through a town or whatever, and that sets up the story for that book. And it's kind of neat, and it's kind of, people expect it when you read Wheel of Time now. So Rafe's answer was, we tackled the wind in the pilot in what I think at least is an unexpected but rewarding way. Excited to see what you all think of it. So, again, really hard to show wind on the screen in a, convincing and dramatic way, I guess, when it's just a light wind breeze or blowing or whatever. They're going to show it in an unexpected but rewarding way, so they're going to have a nod to it in some way, shape, or form, which I'm really happy about. I like the fact that they're going to do that. All right, question. Do you have to change character personalities for screen adaptation? This is a really good one. So are they going to change the core of the characters? Rafe said we try not to. Most of our job is about making sure that we create a story and scenes that can tell the audience about character motivations and why they're doing something they're doing. We can't just drop into their head and say it like you can in a book. This often results in some of the biggest changes, but they're ultimately put in to make sure that a character on screen is emotionally true as possible. Now, this is a really good point. Now, a lot of Robert Jordan's writing is inner monologue. So Perrin talks to himself a lot. Rayanne talks to himself a lot. Matt talks to himself a lot. So you understand their motivations. You understand what they're doing. You understand what they're thinking. You understand why they do certain things they're doing because they're talking about it in their heads. You know their personalities that way. You can't do that really well in a show because if you do 30 minutes of inner monologues, it's going to be a pretty friggin' boring show. So you have to show their motivations. So For example, Perrin being slow and gentle, let's have him, roll around with some puppies and be nice to them. No, that's just a joke. But, things like that. They have to show that. They can't just have people talk about it. All right, so up next we have, were there any changes in earlier drafts of scripts that were scrapped in the final version? I'm going to say yes even before I look at the answer. Yes, tons. Haha. We were never afraid to try something and see if it works, but then it also has to go through Sarah and me. I drive the writers as crazy as anyone sticking to the books, which is good. I mean, Sarah is the book consultant, but Rafe is a big fan of the series as well, so I'm quite happy that he's looking at these things too. It also then goes to Brandon Sanderson, Harriet McDougall, and Maria Simmons, who have been huge helps in checking us and helping us get back to the drawing board on changes, or many times saying that works and giving us permission to release a tiny sigh of relief. So there we go. So we know that Brandon is involved. He's read some of the scripts. We know that Harriet, Robert Jordan's widow, is involved as well. That all bodes very well for a really good adaptation. Are there some major characters that appear in the first book that won't appear in the first season? Now this is pretty big. Yes, and some of them are still slated to appear in later seasons, again, approaching the adaptation of the series, not just each book individually. A few of these characters I bet you already expect this for, and one at least I think will surprise you. So, we haven't seen any of the castings for the Tracans yet. That is probably some of the ones they're talking about there. But there are a ton of characters in the first book that are very instrumental later on in the series that we may not get to see for a few books here and there in between. So having them come in and they can do most of their plot arc in one go rather than a little bit here, 2 seasons later, a little bit there, 2 seasons, a little bit later, makes a lot of sense for hiring and contracts for actors and actresses. All right, question. Have there been any major locations or cities you've had to cut for budget, time, and logistics? Now, this is pretty interesting. This is perhaps the biggest source of changes for us. Even with the massive amount of money Amazon has kindly given to us to bring this world to life, they're sitting at about $15 million an episode, to go as many unique cities, villages, locations as they do in the books is simply impossible. We have chosen to do a few places extremely well, both culturally and with production design, instead of doing dozens of places cheaply and badly. This results in many changes that have huge ripple effects. If you can't go to Berlin, do you still meet Min? Do you still encounter the White Cloaks? Do you still have dreams of Balaismon? Etc. I'm betting that most things that feel the most unnecessarily changed to people from the books, even if they're hugely separated from that specific location, will be born out of a location-specific change. So before I get to this question, I want to comment on that. I mean, I've said this for a long time. It's an adaptation. They're probably going to cut stuff. It would make a lot of sense to have 2 or 3 locations done really well than, say, to go to Camelin. And I know everybody wants to see Camelin, and they already cast Basil Gill and whatnot. But if they go to Camelin, they're not going back for quite some time. It's a massive waste of resources to do a city that big, a set that big, CGI, all of that stuff for a very short, what amounts to be maybe 5 or 10 minutes on screen in the first episode or in the first season, and then not come back to it for a few seasons. So I'm not terribly surprised that Rafe has admitted that they're cutting things, especially cities and locations, because I've suspected it for quite some time, and I'm sure a lot of you have as well. Because, I mean, let's face it, Amazon doesn't have infinite money, and, well, I mean, they kind of do, but they're not going to throw infinite money at this adaptation. All right, so, question. Do you attempt to keep book dialogue or start from scratch? This is a good one. Every writer receives a document when they begin their script put together by our book expert, Sarah, that breaks down every scene in the episode and gives specific dialogue and scene references from the books for it. Especially for scenes that aren't from the books at all, we will find scenes from the books that will with the same characters together or talking about the same thing thematically. That said, predictably, almost all the dialogue in the show is not from the books, so as to sound natural as possible with their locations, actors, scenes, as they've played. Now, with that, that makes a whole lot of sense, because the way the books are written, the dialogue in the books plays really well in the books. You're reading it, it's in your mind, it's good. But if you watch Winter Dragon, some of that dialogue's ripped straight from the prologue, and it didn't play well at all. It's very unnatural feeling to speak in that manner. And can you imagine doing 8, 10, 12 seasons, however many seasons of the series they're going to do, speaking exactly the way it's written? I think it would get old pretty quick. That's just my take on that. All right, how far through the series do you consider when making changes in terms of repercussions? We have to consider it for the entire series, which has led to many room conversations, screaming matches where someone is like the Yellow Sister healing someone in the scene cannot be Chesmel Emery. Are you kidding me? Do you know anything about Chesmel Emery? What, did you just Google a random Yellow Sister name and pick one you liked? Fuck you and your Yellow Sister. It's not going to be fucking Chesmel Emery. I guarantee you that. That's amazing. This is my favorite answer that Rafe gave. Because it's true. I can 100% see a bunch of writers sitting in a room going, oh, this is how it's going to be. and then Sarah's sitting there just glowering at them, just going, ooh, you can't do that because 3 books down the line, this person is supposed to be halfway across the continent, not there, and continuity errors and blah, blah. I can see that 100% happening. This is, if you guys aren't on Twitter or Facebook for that matter, this has spawned a number of memes. I mean, there's a number of fuck you and your yellow sister memes everywhere. It's pretty cool. Question. Have you made changes that hurt you and Sarah to make but were necessary for the screen? Now, this is a really good question because as they're both big fans of the books. So any change is probably going to hurt them, but some of them will hurt more than others. The writer's room floor is littered with my tears. Truly, though, I don't want people to be unprepared for how different the show is to the books. To do a proper adaptation, it has to be. As a thought exercise, just imagine what we can do with only 4 of the cities from the Eye of the World. So Emond's Field, Terran Ferry, Berlin, Shader Logoth, Whitebridge, Four Kings, Breen Spring, Camelin, Faldera. Which do you choose? What are the knock-on effects for each character and story from the ones you don't go to? Which characters haven't met each other yet, and how can you reconnect them? We have amazing writers and hugely helpful support in Brandon and Harriet to tackle these changes, but they're not small. Gird your loins, my friends. So, what he's saying is there's going to be major changes. He is not specifically saying they're only going to 4 locations in the first season, but he said the word 4. So let's go back to the answer here. He said the word 4, so Emond's Field we know for sure. 100% know for sure we've seen set pictures. So that's 1. Let's get my thumb a little bit more on the screen here. Faldera. We've seen what we think amounts to be set pictures of Faldera, especially with Lord Aelglamar's standard and whatnot and the Shannarian soldiers. That's 2. Now, we know they're going to Terran Ferry. That's a given because we have seen set pictures of the ferry. We've seen set pictures that have leaked that the ferrymaster dies, doesn't live. So that's 3. Now, what's left? Camelin, Breen Spring, Four Kings, Whitebridge, Shader Logoth. If you can only pick one more of those, and I mean, again, this is entirely speculation. He's the one who said 4, not me. I would, out of those ones, pick Four Kings. Or Shader Logoth. Those are my 2. I would entirely cut Camelin, and I would cut Breen Spring. And Whitebridge. Those are the 3 that I would cut if I had to only choose 4 of those. There are far-reaching consequences for each of those cuts, but it's not like they can't be done somewhere else. So there's that. All right, next question. What made you change Tom playing the lyre to a guitar? So this is a really good question, and I tackled it a little bit earlier, and let's see what Rafe said. Tom's a good example of changes made for the show. For one, I want characters to appear when we have the time to spend to properly introduce them and get enough scenes for them to attract a great actor for the role. You'll never see scenes in this show where 4 random people appear, say 2 lines, and disappear for seasons. So I've been saying this for a while. People like Huron the Thief Taker, a lot of major characters, not just small side characters, but major characters will show up, say a couple lines, and then be gone for books, and then come back and be a major component of the story. So there's that. You'll never see scenes on this show where 4 random people appear, say 2 lines, and then disappear for seasons. It just won't get you to the caliber of actor you need, and it doesn't properly intro that character to the audience. So for Tom, we wanted to give him a proper introduction, and also wanted him to have a strong masculine energy that made him a counterpart to Moiraine. We saw actors of all ages, races, and vibes to play Tom, but when Alex Williams' tape came through, we knew he was Tom and moved toward his vibe for the character, which was younger and grittier than Book's Tom. The guitar looks much more fitting in his hands and with his voice than a lyre. When he stomps on a stage in the show, it's a moment, and that's what we wanted for Tom. Never fear, Multicolored Cloak is still in existence, but different than you imagine. Isis, your costume designer, nailed it. So that's one of the things. In the script portion, it said that his patches were on the inside, not on the outside, which 100% makes sense, to me at least, because when you're out and about, wandering from town to town, the patches all fluttering in the wind and stuff like that, they're going to catch on things in when you're on the road. They're going to point you out to bandits. They're not super, in my mind, practical, because it's not like Gleeman or Untouchables in Robert Jordan's world. They're just regular people that have a little bit of extra oomph to them, because they do a job that everyone likes, so to speak. But they still get waylaid by bandits, I'm sure. So with that in mind, he's saying, not the way you'd see it. Probably on the inside, when he flourishes it and waves his arms around and stuff, you'll see the inside of his cloak and all the patches, which is a signature trademark for Gleeman. That's my thoughts there. So he's saying that they changed Tom to be more fitting for the screen, which, in my mind, I'm super happy with. To find an older actor with the same... everyone has their picks for Tom, and I'm not going to mention the name that 95% of the fandom has been on for years, but who should play Tom. But you want somebody who's athletic, somebody who is very masculine. You want somebody who's gritty, because you need that on screen. You need a counterpart to the strong female characters you have. You need a strong male character as well. And in at least the first few seasons, the boys are not very strong male characters, and Lan is a background character. So you need someone more in the foreground that does more of that to counterbalance the other ones, which makes full sense to me. All right. This is the last question. How much the Monster, Trolloc, Fade, Drehekar design is being done practically versus digital effects? Mostly makeup and prosthetics. And with that, how closely does the design match the text? Totally smooth faces on Fades, variety of Trollocs, etc. We've worked hard to use as many practical effects and pieces as possible for the Trollocs Fades, but we don't want to spoil all of the secrets until you watch the behind the scenes after the first season developing. Additional questions and answers will be added as they come up. So, he has said in the past a number of times that practical effects always take precedence for the show, that he will use as many of them as humanly possible, but then he will change it to, non-practical effects when needed. I'm more happy that he's saying there's going to be a behind the scenes. I'm super excited about the behind the scenes stuff, because that's my bread and butter. I love that stuff. I love watching behind the scenes. I love spoilers. I like watching how things are made, how the movies are made. Those shows all really interest me. I love that stuff. So I'm excited we get to see that. I'm also excited that he's saying that we're going to see mostly practical effects. However, he's saying when possible. So you look at Lord of the Rings, they had 4 or 5 guys, I think 6 guys, dressed as orcs or goblins, and the rest of them are CG in the big battle scenes. That's probably going to be the same for this. You're going to have CG for non-main characters, and characters that interact with the cast or have to fight with the cast will probably be people in prosthetics and costuming, which I can't wait to see the makeup effects for that. I can't wait. I'm super excited with that stuff. So, with that being said, with all these questions out of the way, Rafe has actually let us know a lot of things in these answers that we would never have known normally. Like, he gave a lot away that I don't think he really realized what he gave away. Or he may have written everything out very carefully and he knew exactly what he gave away. I don't know. I don't know the man, so it's quite possible he did it on purpose. But for now, we have a lot more information about the show than we did before. And that information is, basically, there's going to be major sweeping changes, and deal with it. That's pretty much what we're getting. So, with that said, I've been saying for quite some time in this channel that changes are going to happen. It's an adaptation. It's another turn of the wheel. You're setting yourself up for massive disappointment if you don't know there's going to be changes. And I don't just mean small changes like someone's eye color is different. We're talking massive, major, sweeping changes, because you need to make the book make sense for the screen. It has to fit in with the time they have, the actors and actresses they have, the money they have. There's not enough money in the world, I don't think, to take a perfect rendition of Robert Jordan's works, put them on the screen, exactly how every single person who read them thinks they should be, because let's face it, you put 10 people in a room who've read these books, they will have 10 different ideas on how this first season should play out, how characters should be, how characters look, because yes, they are described in the books, but not everyone sees them exactly how they're described. And I'm not going to get into that too much right now, because I've done other videos on this before. But there are going to be major changes. And again, like he said, if you only can pick 4 locations, if Amazon comes to you and says, this is what you can do, that's what they can do. It's either don't make the show at all or make some concessions and changes. I would rather than make the show and make it as good and as close to the heart and soul of the books as they can. And I know they're doing that because they have the proper people involved. And for all you naysayers who say, well, no, I would do a better job. If you can do better than Robert Jordan's widow, if you can do better than Brandon Sanderson, who authored the last few books, was chosen out of potentially tens of thousands of writers to do so, if you can do better than Rafe Judkins, who has a number of massive TV show hits, credits under his belt, if you can do better than Sarah Nakamura, who is probably the most knowledgeable person on the planet when it comes to Wheel of Time right now, I'm a close second. But if you can do better than all those people, I want to hear from you. Say in the comments down below, like out yourselves and say, I am better at this than these people. Because I don't think you are. I don't think anybody can be. I think they have assembled an amazing team that works really well together, and I think they will do the books justice. Will it be the same? No. But will it do them justice? 100%. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. All right, with that being said, I am going to talk a little bit about the channel at the end here. So we are sitting at about 4,600 subscribers, close to 5,000. Now, that means I'm probably going to run another contest soon. I mean, I've done a few contests. I've done one for 1,000 subscribers, did one for 2,500. I did one just on Twitter a while ago for fun. And I've always given away a What Up t-shirt and a water bottle. But what do you guys want? Do you want something a little bit different? My thought on this was, for the new contest, I will pick someone, one of the viewers, and have them come on the show with me. You can pick the topic. You can pick whatever you want to talk about. We will talk about the Wheel of Time. I'll do a little episode up, and you'll be on the channel, immortalized forever on YouTube, because, once something hits the internet, it never goes away. Trust me, I know. You've seen some of my earlier videos. They're pretty cringy. They're bad. And they're there forever. So that's the way it is. But how does that idea sound to you guys? Let me know in the comments down below. Is that a good idea for a contest, or do you want more swag? Do you want another t-shirt, a mug perhaps, like the Dusty Wheel and Talk Around Rioid, and the rest of them I'll give out? I can do one of those. Or do you want to do the come on the show and talk for a bit? We'll Zoom call in and we'll do a topic of your choosing. I think that's a great idea personally. So we'll do that. Somewhere between 5,000 and 7,500 subscribers. So, with that being said, if you watch these episodes and you don't subscribe to the channel, if you watch these videos and don't subscribe to the channel, please do so. The more subscribers I have, the more views I have, the more content I can bring you. As you know, I don't have a Patreon or a store, so this channel doesn't really bring in much money. I do this for the love of the series and love of the show. So, if I have subscribers and views, that lets me bring more content to you folks. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. It's a simple click of a button. If you like the video, click the like button. YouTube metrics really seem to like that for some weird reason. And if you have anything to say at all, whether it's a comment, correcting my pronunciation, which is, that's a fun one. A lot of people like that. Or correcting me just in general. I love seeing it. I like constructive criticism. It only lets me get a little bit better. Or if you have comments about the video, comments about these questions, comments about the changes, any of that stuff, leave it down below. YouTube also seems to really like comments for some really strange reason. All right. With that being said, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like it, leave a comment, and we'll talk a little bit more about the contest when we get closer to 5,000 subscribers, and we'll see what we can do with that. All right. Thank you all so very much for supporting me and sticking with me through this last crazy year that we've had, and here's to many more.